The basic things you need to know about the Bible is a small booklet that helps you understand the Bible. For many people, it's just an old, black, dusty book, heavy as a brick, and it has nothing to say to you today because it speaks King James English. Well, first of all, I have to tell you that the Bible is today even in modern language, so you can read it and find out what it says. And the interesting thing is that 3/4 of it is made up of the Old Testament. And people say, oh, I don't read the Old Testament. I'm a New Testament person. But you can never understand the New Testament if you don't read the Old Testament as well. And the Old Testament was a Bible that Jesus read and who he said to the Pharisees, you read the scriptures, but they speak about me. Yes, the Bible, the Old Testament, for Jesus spoke a lot about him. And then it was fulfilled in the New Testament when he came. You can read several of the books in the Old Testament in various ways. You have first the 5 first books, we call them the first books of Moses. The Jews call it the Torah. It is the history of the Jewish people since the day of creation and since they went into down to Egypt and were there in a difficult situation and were freed out of there as they exited Egypt under the leadership of Moses. And then we have other books that talk about the history of the Jewish nation and how they had judges and how they had kings. And later on, we read about poetical books. Most of you have heard something from the book of Psalms quoted. Well, there are 150 of them, and each one is worth reading. There are other poetical books. And then, of course, we have the prophets that wrote, some of the more heavy giant prophets that wrote long, long books, and some of the smaller ones, not in stature, but in writing, who wrote perhaps just 4 or 5 chapters. And that leads us right in to the New Testament. 4 Gospels speaking about Jesus from a little different angle each. It's like eyewitnesses who see the same story but tell them from different angles. We read about the early church, the Acts of the Apostles, and it's one of the most fantastic readings I know because it tells you how the church exploded when the gospel went out and people saw these disciples and the followers of Jesus go around the world, literally turning the world upside down. And then we have a whole bunch of letters that many of the leaders in the early church wrote to the early churches so they can learn how to stay in their faith. Ending up with a book of Revelation that tells us about the future and gives us a view of what we can expect. All of that you find covered in this little booklet. A little set of paragraphs on every book so you can see which one you want to read first. But never put it down. Continue to read, because the Bible is like a compass for your life. You will know in what direction to go, what road to follow, and you will find it's a blessing every day with something that speaks to you. So pick up this book and read about the Bible, and then read the Bible.